I see a lot of SEOs who focus on stuff that Google says, hey, you need to focus on this, even though it's not a ranking signal. Can you walk through maybe like your, I don't know, top 5 ranking signals that SEOs and business owners really need to look for, as opposed to like spending energy on areas that Google says work here, but it doesn't actually change your rankings?
Number one, I disagree with Google's entire narrative around putting things like that out, because their other narrative is that every site is unique and that every site needs something unique. So it's either this works for everything, right, which is what they're saying here, or you need to specialize and have everything unique. So they kind of have, but they do it a lot where they have mixed messaging across the board. And that's why site owners and bloggers and things are very confused. And a lot of people are quite upset with Google. Rightfully so. You know, if you were making 100K a month and now you're making $1,000 a month, I would be pretty pissed off too, you know, to be fair. Generally speaking, the top 5 are dependent on how competitive your SERP is. Okay. So the more competitive we get, the less on-page matters, because everybody's got the meta titles optimized. Everybody's got the content optimized. Everybody's got 1,000 blog posts on their blog. Everybody's got all this. That's when it starts to come more down to links, to be fair. And when you start getting, you know, if you look at car insurance, for example, very limited reason to do with the on-page of why those sites are ranking. It's mostly to do with links. And there's a reason Geico is like number 1 and State Farm are number 1. You know? So like it's all because they're DR90s, not because they're, you know, there's no DR40s ranking for car insurance, basically. So all of those kind of queries, it's just links. When you start dealing with lower competition stuff, that's when it starts to matter more about on-page. Okay. There are some keywords where there are sites ranking and the sites have a Twitter account and a YouTube channel, and that's their entire link profile, right? It's just that they've been creating really, really solid, good piece of content. There's a massively underrated signal, which I'm not too sure where it stacks in like the top list. I don't think anybody really is. And a very large portion of the SEO community, as a direct result of Google's messaging, was saying that it didn't even exist 6 months ago. And that is user engagement signals. So using Chrome data and things like that, because John Mueller last year at a conference, I think it was, I can't remember which conference, I think it was PubCon or SMX, a audience member asked a question, and this is recorded, it's on video, asked a question and basically goes to the point of saying, how much is Chrome data used in Google's ranking signals? And John Mueller replied by laughing the microphone to the audience member and basically accusing them of not knowing what they're talking about and that they don't use the user data. Forward 6 months later, you have the DOJ saying that they do use it. And then 3 months after that, Google's entire algorithm got leaked, and it turns out it was one of the most important things of their algorithm. So we literally had that engineers saying for like 20 years that it wasn't used at all. They never used any click data. They never used any of this. And it turns out they had entire systems dedicated to it. Like NavBoost was a system just dedicated to user engagement data. I think that's a massive growing signal. And I think as we move more into AI and as Google gets better at like spam detection and things like that, they will rely more on user engagement signals and data. The problem I have with it as well is that it can be manipulated. And I think actually traffic can be manipulated easier than basically every other metric, because you have to, there are certain systems that Google does to filter out traffic for it to count towards NavBoost. And as a result of all these leaks, we know those exact filters that Google is using. So all we have to do is kind of combine those filters into there are very, I don't want to necessarily get too much into this because I don't want Google clocking on, but there are various ways that you can manipulate that traffic to get Google to count it. And as a result of that, we've been doing a lot of testing. And to be fair, this is one of the things where the French SEO community are massively ahead of basically everybody else. And the French have been manipulating like CTR and user engagement signals and Chrome data for the last year or so. And their community was very, very ingrained in the fact that this is a part of the algorithm. It's usable, it's manipulatable, it's exploitable, all that kind of stuff. And they were basically the only community that was using it last year. As a result of that, they're up here. Everybody else is still trying to figure it out, somewhere down here kind of thing. So I've been learning a lot from the French SEOs recently who actively been doing that. And some of the traffic manipulation numbers that they're doing are absolutely unbelievable. I was thinking, oh, you're going to manipulate like 10,000 visits, and they're like, no, you're going to manipulate 80 million visits.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm not talking like small numbers.
Oh.
I'm talking there at some serious scale. And I get it. At that point, I think it's just such an overwhelming amount of traffic that Google systems, even if they discount 90% of it, 8 million visits is still going to boost this system anyway. So I also kind of believe in that whole side. In terms of the top 5 rankings, I'm too in my own head about where user engagement signals would end up. And it is very based on competitive keywords versus non-competitive keywords. I would probably go down the route of saying that links is number 1, just because it's route authority beats basically everything. If you're a DR90, you will beat every other site that isn't a DR90, basically. So I would say links number 1. Number 2, you've got content and on-page, because you can rank purely off content and on-page, but you need to be very good at it, and it's only certain niches. Any niches that have got link authority, you don't win in. Number 3, I would probably put internal linking.
Okay.
Number 4, user engagement signals. And then number 5, you're talking additional external factors. So trust signals, social signals, things like that.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click here. If you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.